5, and that is a proposal in relation to the event sponsorship fund. So Sean is here to speak to that. I think pretty clear, the report, Sean, so I might just go straight to questions. I think the report's pretty clear, isn't it?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship.
Okay. And of course, Deputy Mayor, being Chair of Event Sponsorship, if need be, can answer some questions as well. So are there any questions on this report?
No.
No?
Just under rationale, on page 85, I'm trying to get my head around. I mean, the only rationale I can see there is on the top of the first line, overnight stays in the city. What other benefits are there? So, putting people in hotel rooms.
Your Worship, if I could just respond to that. The criteria that we put in place for the application of the Event Sponsorship Fund is centred around benefit to the city, and we describe that pretty much as, yes, visitor nights and generation of new business opportunity to the city. We also describe it as a profile and awareness of the city in terms of what an event may deliver for us nationally in particular. So an example of that would be the balloons over Waikato. There's probably a greater value in that in terms of the profile that it gives the city for that event than necessarily the overnight visitation. The other element to the funding criteria that's considered is community impact in terms of what it does for a community benefit and so forth. So it is more than just generating overnights, but this specific fund does really focus on quite heavily on the overnight generation or generation of new business opportunity for Hamilton.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mallett?
What amount of weighting goes into this fetish we have for getting people staying overnight and drinking a beer rather than plumbers, carpenters, teachers, doctors, all the other people who are extraordinarily productive in our community who we just don't give a rat's about?
Look, I would.
Where's their fund?
Well, certainly if you're looking at business generation, we are looking at that in total for the community. And obviously, when we talk about visitor nights, it's a measure that is something that we can monitor and track and so forth. I would argue, though, that other businesses like the electricians, like the plumbers, like the builders and so forth do get benefit from hotels and motels being well occupied and utilised. So the spill-on effect or downstream effect from visitation or new visitors spending new money in our economy does spread out.
So when a plumber spends money on products and employs people and does work, that doesn't create economic impact and multiplier effects and all that sort of stuff? Why is $1 spent in the entertainment stroke accommodation sector more valuable than $1 spent in a plumber or a carpenter or a teacher or a doctor or anything else?
Well, we're certainly not depreciating the value of economic enterprise and what goes on here. As I said just before, the key thing about it is new money into our economy that comes from outside the local economy.
Yeah, but it's new money that's new money that is only derived because we're subsidising it. This plumber, the carpenter, the teacher, the doctor, those guys, they do it on their own. They use their own money, generate their own business.
So
they don't they don't.
No, you just listen to me. You are making a statement, and that's you're entitled to have your views and articulate those in debate. Yep. This is the purpose of this part of this discussion, is to ask questions to enable you to form a view. Yep. You can save your position on it to when we get to the debate. Okay.
Again,
so I think you've asked the question.
So why is the dollar? No, I haven't finished. So why is the dollar earned from the motelier or the pub any more valuable than the dollar earned from the plumber, the carpenter, teacher, the doctor, etc., etc.? The car salesman.
I just answered the question.
No, you didn't. Why is that one? Why is that one necessary?
Councillor Mallett, just ask your question and let him answer. If you don't like the answer, you don't need to interrupt him. And so
his answer was to say, "I've just answered that." Why is
I didn't get to finish my answer.
Okay, there you
Yes.
go.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
As I had
Lead
said
on.
before, new money into our economy. That's where we're talking about people who visit from outside of the city and outside of the region. We're talking new spend into the economy.
Why, what do you mean it's new spend? Every dollar that's spent here is a new dollar.
So an Aucklander who comes to Hamilton to spend their money, they're bringing Auckland money in to spend into our local economy.
So the plumber who does work for anyone, because all economic activity flows across boundaries. It all eventually flows across boundaries.
Absolutely, but
So
this
it makes
is,
no difference whether it's a plumber
So
who does
what's
some
your
work from.
question?
Pardon?
What's your question?
So why is that dollar more important than the other dollar? Particularly given that the dollar that the plumber, the carpenter, the teacher, the doctor, etc. generates has been generated by themselves rather than having been taken from ratepayers. Because you're forgetting, we're propping these guys up.
So again, you're welcome to your views, but I
So why is it more valuable? Why is it?
Yep.
Why is it you want? So how do you justify?
Why is it more valuable is actually really clear to understand. It doesn't need the extrapolation that you're adding to it.
Yep.
So there we go. We've got a question. Why is it more valuable? Is it more valuable?
Why do we? Yeah. So why do we
We've
have to
got-
prop
yep.
this industry up when there's 1,000 other industries that we don't prop up? In fact, we take money off.
Okay, Gary, thank you.
look, as I said, the premise is for event sponsorship is for events that focus on deliver a profile of Hamilton, and hopefully a favourable profile. Events that are a benefit to the community where Hamiltonians get to participate and benefit from it, and especially events where we can bring new money into our existing economy that wouldn't be spent here otherwise.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pascoe?
Yes, I've got a couple of questions. One follows on, I think, from Councillor Mallett's questions, which I couldn't quite follow, but I assume sponsorship proceeds usually go to not-for-profit organisations. They're not necessarily paid out to other commercial organisations.
You're absolutely correct.
So Councillor Mallett's comparison of the sponsorship dollar going to a not-for-profit organisation isn't the same as propping up the plumber or the teacher or the candlestick maker or...
Not directly, but having said that, if we provide sponsorship money to someone like the Garden Arts Festival or Balloons over Waikato, they are going to employ services of local tradespeople, of suppliers of businesses, of product or whatever. So they will become a downstream beneficiary of direct business as a result.
Okay. Is it expected that the increase of 150,000 will go to new activities, new organisations, or is it intended that they will help add additional sponsorship funds to the Balloons and the Gardens Arts Festival and Christmas Trust and so forth?
Look, I wouldn't want to preempt the discussions of the event sponsorship subcommittee in terms of the deployment of funds through the applications it receives. But what we do know is that the funding level that we have now is becoming quite limited. We have dropped from a fairly reasonable budget down to quite a short budget. The key issues that we have is we are hamstrung a little bit in our ability to respond to new event opportunities that come our way that might be proposed to Hamilton to give Hamilton the chance to host a major event or a series of events, and so we're very limited there. The second issue is that does concern me as well as, and I know some of the committee members as well have said this, is that we're not taking a very proactive stance ourselves in terms of generating something that we truly believe could add value. And I guess the third point, which comes back to your question as well, is that there is a bit of a concern that the existing events or the remaining events that we sponsor, and there's only around 4 or 5, but 3 in particular, if you look at Garden Arts Festival, Balloons and so forth, we do have a concern that in real terms, whilst they're successful, their ability to deliver is getting tougher and tougher and tougher as time goes by, and the amount of incomes that they can derive in terms of what the true cost of these organisations are is starting to show a bit of strain. And if I go back to my point earlier on about us wanting these events to deliver significant profile of Hamilton, or positive profile of Hamilton, there's a bit of a concern that perhaps there's not enough marketing and promotion of those events outside of Hamilton itself. So the committee, the subcommittee, I think, will be wanting to weigh all those issues up.
So this could be an opportunity for the Sevens to be relocated here, or a garden, I'm not suggesting that specifically those, but it could open, this additional fund could open the door to some additional events happening here that currently don't
I think,
happen.
Councillor Pascoe, I probably just need to make sure you're clear here. Any major international events, whether they be sporting or otherwise, is generally are treated separately and brought to the council, as part of, rather than just through the event sponsorship fund, because obviously they are significant events. So I just wanted to clarify that's the use.
So those examples I gave
So the
might
council
not be
agrees to
necessarily the
commit
appropriate.
to those
Yeah,
things,
yeah, okay.
Yeah, so potentially, yes, some new events could come here. So I'll give you an example. We're currently having early discussions with one organisation who hold an event every year and have done so for the last 3 years in Wellington, and it's not the Sevens. And they are looking to see whether or not Hamilton could be an appropriate venue. Now, we're talking to them about trying to establish, what is the profile of the event, how many visitors are likely to come from out of town. It's likely to be several hundred. How long are they going to stay, and so forth. So that's the sort of event that could happen. If you want to talk about Sevens, that's quite a major. That's almost at World Cup type level. And if there was an opportunity that we felt it was worthy of consideration of that, we would come to council separately on that matter.
Okay. Now, just a final question. Is the recommendation clear that the 150 increase is for the 2016-17 year, but I noticed that it's intended that the 150 would continue for the remainder of the 10-year, for the remainder of this long-term plan?
Yes, correct. It would be an annual increase.
Does the wording need to be changed to that effect, or does it automatically just flow on that?
No, I think, Councillor Pascoe, you're right. It does need to be worded more appropriately, doesn't it?
Okay, so we could look at that.
So when we
come
get to the motion, because that's right, I read that it's the same as a flow on.
Yep.
As I understand it, that's the proposal, to add
Yes,
in from
correct.
the 2016-17.
That's correct, Your Worship.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Now, did I see anyone else? Councillor King, yes.
I understood the Sevens Wellington City Council subsidised it by $500,000. That's not really World Cup level, if that's
targeted, right?
Yeah, it is, but I don't know that that's the actual figure. There's certainly a number of figures bandied around, but whether that's the right figure or not, I don't know. It may well be. I wouldn't be surprised. But that is World Cup level when you talk about funding of any major events.
Okay.
This money a year ago, am I reading this right, was reduced? This sponsorship fund? Page 85, point 5.
That's correct. So at the time when we did the long-term plan, we were looking at where we could find savings and efficiencies, and where we could find anything that could, could help alleviate the total picture. And this is an area that we identified at the time. But since we've advanced in that year with that lower level of funding, we've obviously cut back considerably on the amount of sponsorship we've had. But we have found it tough and tight for the reasons I stated earlier.
So 1 year ago you put this forward to you put it forward as a way of saving money,
Yes, that's correct.
and now 1 year later you want you want 150,000 back.
We're suggesting that, which isn't the amount of reduction from last time. It's just below.
What's changed in a year?
Well, as I said before, we've reduced our activity. We found it tougher to respond to some of the opportunities that come our way. We've also perhaps appreciated more fully that, and I'm not saying this is indicative of of the amount of money we should be putting into some of the major events that we are now sponsoring, but we have found that those events are finding things tighter and tighter as well in terms of being able to operate at the level they should be.
So what you're actually asking for is money to buy events that wouldn't be profitable otherwise, to bring to our city to fill our hotel rooms.
That's part of the equation, yes.
Do you think that's okay?
It comes back to what does a city such as Hamilton want to do in this space? Does a city in Hamilton want to be in the events arena? Does it want to be attracting increased visitation from other parts of the country and even internationally? Does it actually want to utilise all the spaces and places that it has across the city that are ideal for events? Hamilton City is probably one of the best cities in this country in terms of places and spaces for major events, yet we are struggling to actually get some of them here because they need a little bit of support, and it is quite common in the event space model where local councils are asked for support.
So what were you thinking a year ago when you put forward a proposal to reduce the money?
We were facing, as you will recall, we were facing a very, very tough LTP, and at management level we made some decisions to trim back.
The last plan?
Correct.
Okay.
I don't remember it being a tough...
It was from management point of view, because especially before we came around this table. So, you know, we spent a lot of time trimming and trimming.
Well, unfortunately, would you agree that the money that got saved out of your budget got gobbled up at the end by other projects? It must have gutted you to see that happen.
Look, I wouldn't use the word gutted, but look, it is the reality when you're working the sort of budgets we're working. So, that is what it is. But I, you know, I could understand the challenges everywhere. So,
thank you.
Councillor Mallett?
Sean, you just said one of the rationales for this was that we have spaces and places for events that are not being used, so therefore we need to fill them up. But doesn't that just highlight that we have overestimated our ability to fill these spaces up when we made a decision in the past to build these spaces and places? I mean, Claudelands comes to mind, but I mean, our footy stadium, there's an awful lot of facilities around, you know, council-owned facilities, which just do not get, you know, there just is not the demand for them.
look, if
I guess, but let me rephrase it, a demand that makes them economic, even remotely economic.
The event sponsorship fund generally does not touch any type of event or activity that would take place at Claudelands. We have taken great care to strip that out. Yes, Waikato Stadium from time to time, things like the FIFA under-20s, we use Waikato Stadium. But when I talked about you know, places and everything else, if I look at the events that we're sponsoring now, we're talking about the use of the Innes Common and obviously the university space for the balloons that happen. We're talking about the Garden Arts Festival. We're talking about the you know, Garden Place in the case of all the Christmas events and so forth. So I wasn't being specific to the likes of Claudelands, but certainly you are correct that it's an ambitious place, but it is there and we're making the most of it.
Okay.
So we're kind of asking for money to prop up poor decisions we've made in the past, or...
We're not asking for money to prop up Claudelands or the
Oh,
Waikato,
I'm not saying
or the
but
Waikato
poor
Stadium.
decisions we've made in the past.
Well, Councillor
Decisions which history has proven to us, experience has proven to us, whether or not the glossy brochures that were distributed when the decisions were made, but reality and history tells us now were poor decisions.
Sorry. So Councillor Mallett, again, you know, that's a personal held view, right? And there's nothing wrong with the questions, but it's embellishing them with your position that I'm not happy about. So you can't expect...
I'm just reacting to what the GM had said.
You can't expect staff to answer questions that include an embellished position that you hold about an issue. So I think your question, you need to be more focused on your questions, otherwise the staff simply can't answer.
But isn't it quite clear, I was asking, you're asking for money to bring events, to fill up or use facilities that were poor decisions in hindsight from an economic point of view.
It's that bit, isn't it? So I think the question is are you using this fund to fill up major facilities that have been built in the city? I think that's your question.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not. And as I said before, it's not at all touching the likes of Claudeland and so forth. Where the money's going, when I talk about places, I talk about places like Hamilton Gardens. I'm talking about places like Innes Common. I'm talking about places, you know, other places we have, like Pirate Stadium might be one of the venues perhaps, but I'm not talking about Claudelands in this at all. It's irrelevant to the discussion.
Councillor King?
With the budget that you've got, with this budget, do you use that to then subsidise one of our facilities? So say it costs 100,000 for the facility. If you said, okay, you can use the facility for free, or say 10,000, do you use this budget to subsidise and still pay through the full rate for our facility?
Absolutely not.
So,
Nowhere near it. We don't put any money that goes directly into our venue out of this fund.
so you subsidise the facility at times?
The facility, if you're talking about a place like Waikato Stadium for an event, we cut a commercial arrangement. So our pricing on that really is commensurate with the level of service we're required to give, and to be fair, the commercial model that event might take. But the event sponsorship fund does not touch that. The event sponsorship fund is money that goes directly to an event organiser. I think this council has in the past, I shouldn't say this council, previous councils in the past have sponsored some events that have been at our venues, and you could argue that through the chain of payments that may have occurred, but that very deliberately does not happen now.
So if an event came, we may give them cash, which comes out of this. We may give them a subsidised facility.
So if I can answer that, if you look at the FIFA World Cup, yes, the event sponsorship put sponsorship money in, but that money did not actually go to the stadium at all. We cut a separate commercial arrangement on the use of the stadium. The money that we put in was more to do with city promotion event, the marketing, the campaigning for people to come here and so forth, but the venues themselves are quite separated from that package. And in the case of Cricket World Cup, the events sponsorship fund didn't provide any funding towards that.
So this fund, was it used for FIFA?
Yes, it was.
So we gave them cash out of this fund?
A portion of it went to cash to the New Zealand Local Organising Committee.
And did we discount the use of the facility?
We didn't discount the use of the facility, but we did find a sort of a flexible mechanism where we could flex our pricing up and down according to the attendance figures. Yeah.
And then the staff hours on top as well?
Yes.
You talk about a cost benefit to the city. Where's the evidence for that?
We get reports from the events that we sponsor, and they give us an indication of the number of attendees who participated, and where they can, we get a indication from them of the number of people that came from out of town, and so forth. We have recently done some survey work for a range of events, not just sponsored events, and we got the report just before Christmas, where we get an idea or an indication of how many people came from out of town for a specific event. I would stress that the event sponsorship fund is really primarily, this year we've supported 5 events, but at the moment it's geared up to support just 3 events, so it's not widely spread.
Do you think, is there a cost benefit report available for this type of thing?
Well, there should be, but we, as I say, we have done a report on events, a generic report on events, but I don't think it would give you the sort of depth that you're after. Bearing in mind the money we're talking about and then the cost of doing a full-blown economic analysis, you sort of need to ask the question about what will come out of that. But we can certainly give you an indication on an event basis, how many people came from out of town,
I'm
who
not
stayed.
suggesting you spend a whole lot of money on
No,
reports. What
yeah.
I was suggesting is there a market standard type
Oh,
report
yes, absolutely.
that shows the benefits
Yes.
that could have been with this report so that we could see what was in it for the city?
Yeah.
Because you're asking for money without any evidence as to what the benefit is to the city. We just have to take your word
We
for
could
it that it
we could pull some
follows
benchmark.
hotel rooms.
We could pull some benchmark numbers together for you.
Yeah, I'm not asking you to do site-specific analysing and wasting money on reports. I'm just saying there must be some generic.
We could do that.
Type
Basically,
report that
we
could have gone
would
with
we would
this.
steal some key indicators from other cities that have done reports.
Now,
Thank you,
perhaps, Sean, I mean, the event sponsorship agendas are available to councillors, and they do receive reports back on the events, don't they, Deputy Mayor? So councillors can read those at any time. So perhaps if you circulate or give to Councillor King some of those reports, I mean, they're already
Sure.
available to councillors, but perhaps pull them out so that at least he can have a read of those. Yeah. Okay.
What I was saying
I know.
is with this report, some evidence of the benefit to the city would have been helpful. I'm not on the subcommittees that look at this, and I feel it's an incomplete report and that it's asking for money without giving a reason, without showing any evidence as to what the benefit is. I don't want paper coming out of my ears from every committee. I was suggesting a generic report that shows if you have an evening event in a city, it's 2 hours away from any other cities, what the benefit is to the city.
Okay. Right, are there any other questions on this? Deputy Mayor, you moving? Can I just suggest, Deputy Mayor, I think it needs to read that council increase the event sponsorship fund budget by 150,000 from 2016-17 to a total, because I think that picks up the continuous thing. So you're moving that?
Yeah,
It's
I'll
on
move-
page 10, paragraph 43, the wording.
I'm happy.
Councillor Young is seconding that. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Do you wish to speak, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I would like to speak to it. I have to say that the criticism through the questioning, I take somewhat personally. And I say that because I volunteered for the job. And we have other councillors who volunteered to give up their time to protect the ratepayer money allocated to produce events for the city. And I appreciate the work that my colleague Philip Young has done, my colleague Ewan Wilson has done, and my colleague Karina Green has done, and the external appointment. We're not here
Point
for a
of order,
big...
just point of clarity, I just wonder, there's lots and lots of committees we all do voluntarily because it doesn't increase our salary. Does that add any weight
Well,
to
why
what you
don't
do?
you volunteer to
Stop.
go on it, Gary?
Stop!
Sorry,
Stop.
there's a number of committees I volunteer to go on to,
Councillor Mallett, stop.
and I've never put
The
an
rule
invoice in for them.
is, the rule is, if the chair speaks, you are to stop.
I beg your pardon, sorry.
Thank you. So it's not a point of order that you've raised, and if you wish to speak on that matter, you can in debate.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I've listened to questioning that suggests, and you could take that to that level, that we shut down the balloons, we close the Gardens Festival, and we close down Christmas. Let's drop the Christmas tree and forget the parade. Now, this is about public good. It's about creating a community that focuses on the quality of life. All the reasons we live in Hamilton, because there's a range of activities. Some we pay for, some we subsidise, some we assist, and a lot of other activities organised by community groups and sports organisations themselves. And it is about providing an opportunity for residents and families to see the Christmas parade and the Christmas tree. And I find it hard to believe that through Councillor Mallett's questioning that we should shut down Christmas because it doesn't suit his political point of view, the ACT philosophy that's all about the right of the individual. There's also the top sport that we enjoy, and we participate as residents and ratepayers in outstanding events. And who would say that the balloons, the Gardens Festival and Christmas are not outstanding events, also put on for the public good? Councillor King was trying to understand the budget between this previous year and the year before when there was huge constraints on the budget. One of the differences in the budget was the fact that we had funded FIFA and World Cup cricket over several years. And that was through the commitment of the commercial part of Hamilton, who subsidised by $400,000 plus our participation in FIFA. And what that does is it encourages the sport of football in our wider community throughout the region. And I would argue that that's exactly the sort of thing that this council should be involved in. If you look at item 12, which is the sponsorship budgets for other cities, even Porirua, up until now, was spending more on events than we were. So if you will support this, we will increase from $223,000 to $373,000. And the committee that works on this works hard to achieve outcomes that are beneficial for the city and produces outcomes also, not only in the hospitality area, but there are many people employed in these events from within the city. Now, our General Manager, I'm just going to take some of his information and take it a bit further. The University of Waikato has just completed an analysis of recent events, and the reason that you're not getting that information today in full is because it's in draft, and the General Manager has got to go back to the university and get authority to release this information, which I have argued to him that it's important for councillors to see. I have seen the draft paper and I have seen the economic outcomes which exceed by far council's investment. Now, apart from telling you that, you've got to trust me that that's the content of the report. And I look back on my days about the V8 connection.
I have a time extension,
I'll move you in.
Councillor Leary and Councillor Young, thanks.
And it's always talked about the loss. But no one ever talks about the $125 million economic benefit that came to the city. So I'm not making excuses for the outcome. There was a heck of a lot of bad luck around the V8s with the promoters going broke. Some very bad decisions made, and I take some responsibility for that. But at the time, it was a unanimous decision. And I have to say, I smiled when the Waikato Times appeared to promote the Wellington Sevens as being a good shift to Hamilton. And I wondered, had they forgotten the V8s? Because there's no way that I would support, as Wellington Council has done, is to front with $500,000 to bring the Sevens here to FMG Waikato Stadium. What I would do is continue to argue in that situation in terms of professional sport. We need to put a $10 building levy or an events levy on those people that enjoy those events, and that would be true at the stadium, at Claudelands. So I just want to argue that we're at the bottom end of New Zealand investment as a council. Tauranga at least is 580,000, and there is a comparable city. It is about public good. It is about the quality of life. It is about the reason we live in Hamilton.
Okay, any other speakers for or against? Councillor Pascoe?
Yes, I was to speak in favour. I see this whole event sponsorship program is all about making Hamilton a livable city. We spent the last 90 minutes discussing the indoor courts, and perhaps the reason why we felt that the indoor courts hit a soft spot was it also that created this livable city, this city that Hamiltonians want to live in. I don't think it's solely about bringing out-of-towners to the city either. It's all about also offering events for Hamiltonians to enjoy. The Gardens Festival is a good case in point, and some around this table, including Councillor King, have been enjoying certain events at the Gardens this very week, many of which have a gold coin, have the entry price of a gold coin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mallett?
Could I just make a point of clarification on that? I paid my way for my ticket. I didn't go in for free. Or I didn't go in for a gold coin.
Yes, yes, okay. It is an event that the sponsorship fund does sponsor, Councillor King.
I bought a ticket through Ticketek.
Yes, yes, no, I get that. Okay. Councillor Mallett?
Thank you. I think this needs to go into context. At the moment, the Event Sponsorship Fund is a very small part of the subsidy we provide for sport and events in the city. And you'll be sick of these numbers, but the Waikato, Clauden's Event Centre loses about $9 to $10 million a year. These are off the top of my head, so if I get a few of them a little bit wrong, I apologise. FMG Stadium loses about $3 to $4 million a year, and the cricket stadium loses about $1 million a year, roughly. So that's $13 to $14 million. $13 to $14 million, which is about 10% of our rates that we subsidise for this type of event. That is plenty. That is plenty. Now, yet we all, I go to the rugby, I go to the cricket, I go to Claudelands, I use them all. But there's a limit to how much you can expect ratepayers to have forcibly taken from their pockets to support events and sport. And I think if 10% of our rates isn't the limit, heaven protect the ratepayers, because there's something going on wrong in this place. Something is seriously wrong when we can stand by and see 10% of our rates being lost every year from our ratepayers to provide that sort of stuff. And then Gordon suggests that we're not doing enough to support events throughout the city. It's madness, absolute madness.
Councillor King? I had you down
I didn't
that.
ask to speak, but it's nice that you knew I was going to.
We wanted to hear from you.
I'm happy to speak.
Sorry, I had you
Yes.
down on my list to speak.
I didn't,
Did
yeah.
you want to speak or not?
Yes, I did, but I hadn't indicated. But yes, I do want to.
Oh, sorry, I thought you had indicated.
No,
Oh, okay.
but I
Anyway,
do
if
want
you
to speak, yeah.
It's up to you.
So, Councillor Gordon Chesterman, I think you're being the Christmas Grinch. The Christmas parade and tree in Hamilton Christmas is still worked on 150 budget. The balloons still worked on 150 on the budget that we had, which is greater than 150. The Hamilton Gardens Festival is a fantastic event that still works on the budget we've got. This isn't, as you've said in your speech, it isn't about those three events. Those three events all work and work well. A huge amount of volunteer work goes into them, council staff time, and other charitable trusts who are involved. So introducing a fear that these are going to go away, it's not what this is about. This is about an increased budget to help with other things. There is nothing wrong with us protecting the ratepayers' money. There's nothing wrong with us questioning what the money's for. It's prudent for us to ask questions, and I believe during questioning it's fine to ask for evidence to show the cost benefit to the city for the spend that we're asking for, and I don't see any of that in this report.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers for or against?
I
No,
have finished.
You've got a right of reply, Deputy Mayor, if you wish.
I haven't finished.
Oh, sorry, Councillor King, I thought you had finished.
And I find it disappointing that you would bring up the V8s and justify what happened during the V8s and propose that there was a cash benefit to the city because of it. I think introducing that into this discussion today is just disappointing. We know mistakes were made around that period and over that, but I don't think that bringing that into this discussion today is, it was a sensible move. Thank you.
Right, Councillor York?
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe this event sponsorship fund is not about funding those major events like the cricket, football and all those. I believe those came back to council as a separate case and asked for special funding. So for this event sponsorship fund, to me, it's for community event. Now, of course, we are looking at the return, like how many room nights and how much people spend in the city, but we can't justify all those by looking at the amount we spend. Something we need to look at is for the community good, the social well-being of the residents and the people in Hamilton, and make the sense of belonging. Why do we live in this city? Do you want to live in this city without anything? No event, nothing happened, like a dead city. That's not what you want. And I know people been to the Garden Festival. Yes, you pay for the ticket, but without the event sponsorship, you have to pay a lot more for the ticket. That is for people to enjoy affordable ticket. People, 20,000 people lining up on Anglesea Street. What for? Watch the Christmas parade. This is part of the reason why we are in Hamilton. And when I look at the table of the comparison, I feel really ashamed. For the fourth largest city in Hamilton, look, $223,000. We only have 3 events. We even turned down the Gallagher Great Race, we turned down the bridge, around the bridges. There are a lot of other events that we can do, and Hamiltonian can enjoy free of charge. And we're not dumping the money in the river, because people enjoy and they talk about it and they carry on, and the children, the next generation will talk about it. So this is for our sense of belonging. So I really support to increase the budget.
Can I ask for a point of clarification on Philip's speech? Did our city put money into the Gallagher Great Race this year, last year?
Not anymore.
Yes, through your worship, yes, through the event sponsorship fund we have in the past. This year it was on a lesser amount, but won't be continued next year.
Thank you.
Because of the budget, no more.
Councillor Gallagher?
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't going to intervene, but I think
But I couldn't help myself.
I certainly acknowledge, couldn't help it, yeah, right. I certainly acknowledge the points around the quantum that we are spending on the stadia and Claudelands, and I certainly welcome ongoing rigorous scrutiny, because that rigorous scrutiny must also involve how we maximise community return to ratepayers and residents, and how we maximise people's ability to access those facilities and enjoy them. While this is a fairly finely balanced issue, I honestly don't think an extra 150,000 is necessarily a huge amount, and I certainly acknowledge that I think we have learned significant lessons from the way in which the V8 came and the way in which Claudelands evolved, etc., etc. But if you actually look at the other cities, they also, Dunedin, for example, spends huge money on their covered stadium. New Plymouth likewise, and while I haven't gone to the Gardens Festival this time, I acknowledge that that's a classic example of a particular festival that over the years I think will grow and get legs. I am paying a ticket through Ticketek, and I'll be hopefully going to WOMAD. And when I go to WOMAD, I do other things as well as go to WOMAD. I'm going to go to the museum and the cycleways, but that means I'm spending money on motels, etc., etc. But I think New Plymouth is quite a good example of a small, medium-sized city that's actually starting to leverage effectively. It doesn't have to blow its whole budget or the whole bank on something. But I think really it comes back to partnership, and I think the under-17s, where Margaret Comer came and spoke to us, and where we actually got the business community together. So, and you know, we talk about great races, dare I say it, namesake, but I'm just talking about it is around getting the right mix of partnership. And I think Councillor Young is right, because this is all about maximising community enjoyment and a little bit of joy in the community. And, you know, we take the Hamilton Gardens Festival, the incredible outcomes from that in terms of the performers, the local people that are involved in that, the opportunities that young people get to be involved in all of those things. So I think this is a reasonably cautious addition, Mr Deputy Mayor, and consequently I'll be supporting it.
Okay, so if there's no other speakers, I'm just trying to get my head around you, Councillor Gallagher, at WOMAD in the mosh pit there. It's quite
Well,
troubling
there's the
that,
actual,
actually.
in a few years' time I'll be able to snap, there's the over 70s snap, but anyway, another story. But, well,
Even
not
better.
yet, yeah.
What, is
mosh-
WOMAD having a separate over 70s area?
Yes,
Right,
yes,
Do
okay.
you grow your hair?
Right. Life does go on, as they say.
It'd be a corporate box you could use, wouldn't it? Don't you
Unless
use
Harry
the corporate box?
Dinehoven jacks it up, can't.
All right,
no,
so we've
don't
lightened
think-
it up a little bit, and there's no need for a reply, did you say, Deputy Mayor?
No, there is.
Oh, right, sorry.
Look, I would like to use my right of reply to correct a couple of things. Councillor King said that our 3 major events survive on the existing budget. That just simply isn't true. There's a pressure on, and this year we solved the problem by having a budget underspend that was reallocated to those 3 events. Now, the allocation of that budget underspend actually only brought those 3 events up to the spending they had asked for. And I am very sensitive about the cost of the Hamilton Gardens Festival, and in particular, the pro bono input of the chair of the Festival Trust. You're probably talking $100,000 worth of free, that's pro bono work by a chair who's ground into the dirt by the weight of the pressure of running that event. Now, I understand that Councillor Gallagher enjoys WOMAD, and I think that WOMAD is a really good example of a festival that now has a national reputation. It's a bit like the Art Deco weekend in New Plymouth, in Napier. And so the Hamilton Gardens Festival, in my view, isn't there yet. It's close, but it needs greater investment. And it's a bit like the New Zealand Field Days, built by volunteers. The Gardens Festival has been built by volunteers, but the time has come when there needs to be an organisation around that, because it is a huge event. So going forward, some of that extra money, if you allocate it, will be used to make sure those events start moving up the ladder in terms of achieving outcomes that are even better than the outcomes we achieve today. In other words, we want the Gardens Festival to be another WOMAD on the New Zealand entertainment calendar. I think also of the success that Auckland has with its Chinese community and the celebration of the Lantern Festival, the Chinese New Year. And Councillor King, I know, will be impressed when I tell him that I personally helped raise $3,000 for the New Zealand China Friendship Society to run a free concert at Founders Theatre just the other week. And there are about 1,000 Chinese families that were at that event. And I see that Chinese New Year, the Lantern Festival, being part of a future opportunity given the changing nature of the city's ethnicity. So I would urge you to support the additional 150,000. It is not as much as I wanted to ask for, but it's a start in the right direction. And yes, we did fund the Gallagher Great Race, We were asked for 50 and we gave them, I think, 18. But also with a letter that after investing $310,000 with the Great Race since its start, that it was time for us to move off and let them find other commercial sponsors. So with the money we gave them came a letter and a personal visit by me to the Gallagher Group of companies to say, I'm sorry, this is what we are doing and this is the reason we are doing it. And that was well accepted by the Gallagher company. So we do take tough decisions, and I think that we've got a responsibility to fund these events to a level that allows them to move into a more professional era. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to the board to vote. That is the resolution up there.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I had Councillor Gallagher absent, so can I retake the vote?
All right,
Councillor O'Leary's
we're
vote.
resetting, are we? Or
Did you abstain, did you?
Oh, clearly.
Again?
I'll hit it again.
No.
So wait till the lights start flashing, don't we?
Oh, because Dave,
Dave's not here.
playing up.
I did notice that we are not bringing forward our technology
No.
advanced the chamber. The flipboard is going to make a comeback, one would suggest.
Again? Hit it.
Carried, 9 votes for and 1 against. That was completely my issue, councillors, apologies. Wasn't technology.
Thank you, Sean. No, just blame the technology. It does. Right, councillors, the final report to consider is that requires decision is attachment 7, page 87. And this was a matter that was on the list to bring forward. The report is, I think, really self-explanatory, and our councillors that have been here a little while will remember that this has been a topic that has been discussed, I think, I could be wrong, 4 times, 3 times, a fair few times. So there will be councillors who will have some considerable familiarity with this. So are there any questions for Blair on this, this proposal?
Do a large number of...
Can I just check before I go to questions? My understanding is that, of course, we don't need, unless a councillor wishes to institute the fund, we don't need to do anything. We don't actually need to move a resolution if we don't wish to do this.
That is correct. We have obviously a resolution from a subcommittee last year asking that this matter come forward.
Yes, but I'm talking about, I'm just looking at the recommendation. We actually, if we don't want to advance this, we do nothing.
That's
yes,
correct.
Because we get to activate it, we actually have to positively, yes, okay. So unless there is someone who wants to put the motion, which I'll get to people about, there's nothing we need to do, yeah.
Well, I think...
I just wanted to clarify, because this is sort of a negative motion which isn't required, yeah.
Would you like me to move that we don't move?
No, we
just-
don't need to do that. It's all right. It's just the way the report is. Okay, so some questions on this to Blair? Okay, lots of hands. Councillor Mallett, then Councillor Pascoe.
Page 87, the little grid factor trend. Is this across the 3 years, 2012 to 2015, there's been a 0.8% uptake? That's from some councils that do this.
Yes, that's from the councils that's listed in paragraph 10. So it's an analysis
Auckland
of,
by plenty, but
and then extrapolated, obviously, to, in a Hamilton context, sort of just under 400 potential properties per year.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry to keep you up, Councillor Mallett. Councillor Pascoe?
Yeah, my question follows on from 10. You list 9 other councils who presumably do have this targeted rate. What's that 9 out of, how many TLAs would there be roughly around the country?
70.
67?
I was going to say 70.
So it's about 72, is it? Yeah.
Early 70s.
So it's a very small uptake around the country.
It doesn't apply to regional councils, so...
68.
Okay,
68 counts, TA, so
Okay.
68 TAs.
I'll go with that.
68, okay.
It's a relatively low proportion.
Yep, okay, that's fine.
That's a lot, isn't it?
What's population percentage? You've got Auckland in there.
Yeah, look, population-wise with Auckland Council, certainly agree it's a large populace, but certainly across the country, the scheme hasn't found wide favour.
I'm just trying to, obviously, because I'm not, I think the writing's on the wall at this stage, and I totally respect our objective around the debt and some significant decisions we've made today. With the government, and I know we've got a report coming out around the housing, social housing, and I'd love to sort of keep it us just to be monitoring how the warrant of fitness may kick in, because obviously there are schemes and incentives in a whole range of ways and compulsions right down the track around adequate home insulation. So I'm looking at this stage of other ways to skin the cat, so to speak. So I think in an ideal world, yes, I'd be supporting this scheme, but I respect there are some constraints around this table.
I think, Councillor, you'll recall the report that went to your subcommittee, I think
Yeah.
outlined some of those, including the DHB scheme and other initiatives in the city, which do add a number of other elements of how, I guess, home insulation and sustainability is promoted through other initiatives.
Yeah, I think what I'd ask for, rather than just that be, at a subcommittee, community, at the appropriate time, and I think the trigger point is that there's a housing update report, social housing, something like that. I just ask if that perhaps, if some of the broader housing issues, particularly around insulation and could be covered, because obviously that's a significant community health issue.
So that's about that's also the issue of the warrant of fitness
Yeah.
initiative. So, I mean, they'll be packaged up as part of that report that's going to come, I guess, in a few months' time when they finish that work. Yes, okay. All right, any other questions? Okay, so what I'm going to do is ask if there is a wish for any councillor to enact this scheme, then you need to put a motion on the table, otherwise we do nothing.
I'll be keeping it under constant watch. I'm being, and so I don't want that to be misinterpreted. I think I just recognise some realities, but I do think I do think we do have a role to try and, through your report, to get a feel, and particularly around the new legislation as it will impact, and it's been varying views about how that might or may not positively impact.
When you say, Your Worship, that work is being done, is that being done by central government, is it?
No, there's the social housing plan that's being developed external to council. And what Councillor Gow's talking about, there's a sort of a package of other stuff that kind of goes around that.
About the quality of our housing stock.
So I think that's going to take a couple of months before that'll be...
But central government have offered subsidies and that for insulation and all that sort of thing.
Yes, well, that's set out here, isn't it?
But I think also Councillor Gill is referring to the legislation around rented homes and standard insulation, and there's a range of things there.
Okay.
There's lots of other schemes, aren't there? Yeah. All right, so unless no one has a motion on this, then that we don't need to do anything else with this report, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's that one. So councillors, just the next one, attachment 8, was really just for information. These were just a couple of issues that were sort of on the list, and there's the outcome of those, and no action is required. Did you have a question on one of those?
Well, just a little clarity. 2.5, which is the Hamilton Boys High School.
On page 89?
Yes, on page 89. Look, I'm delighted to see that. However, the school has subsequently sent an email to some members about an extension of Beale Street to provide better community use. So I just wanted to signal that, because
Lance can
the general manager is aware of it.
Yes, yes.
And I think councillors need to understand, because it's a $1.3 million ask
Yes,
at their estimate.
an issue that has been floating around and the whole time I've been here at council.
Through you, Your Worship. Yes, just in recent days, the school sent through really what's probably their final proposal. They've been talking about this and having numerous meetings with myself and Chris Allen and others about this for about 12 months. And we asked them just to clarify their thinking and actually bring a proposal through, which they have. They're asking for a significant amount of money, and I've just got Dee's team working through with Chris's team where that proposal fits in relation to the regional sports facilities plan. They've got numerous or several types of sporting facilities planned, such as tennis courts, hockey, an indoor swimming facility, a 25-metre pool in a later stage. They're asking for a contribution from council to open up Beale Street and to contribute to a large car park so that there's basically access through that side of the school. Look, Chris's team have been through it. There is some potential problems with traffic flows on Grey Street, etc. There's some knock-on, so we still need to do some analysis around that. We didn't have that information ready in time to bring to the annual plan, but I'd suggest that maybe we can bring a report back to council if it so wishes.
So I think the issue, this has been a discussion point for a long time. So what you're saying is it seems to be their final position now after, I think you're being generous a year, because I think we talked about this in 2012.
Yeah.
Long-term plan 2012. But I guess the point is you need to do your work, and then if you believe the issue has merit that needs to come before the council, you need to put that into a committee system. And I'd imagine that will be finance. Now, I'm not familiar with whether they're wanting that to be considered as part of this budget round or what. You need to assess that and decide where it goes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I guess that's
So
where we leave it.
still got to work through that, and then we can bring forward an appropriate report.
Yes, okay, all right.
Thank you.
Okay, that's good, thank you. Okay, so councillors, then just on attachment 9, which is page 90.
Can I talk further about this report?
Oh, yes, certainly, yes.
So on page 89, 2.4, is this the 2016-17 annual plan that we're talking about today?
Yes, yes.
So have we been reported back to prior to this meeting on short-term solutions relating to swimming capacity?
Lance, you'll have to deal.
There's been no comprehensive report. We have reported on the partner pools arrangement we've entered into with Hamilton Boys, which was part of that, and I think there was some particular interest with various proposals that the schools had. I'll be quite frank, the information that we provided during the LTP, we don't actually have any other options, so I believe that we've actually given councillors the information that we've got at the moment around what the options are. I didn't want to go ahead and spend a whole lot of time doing really running over the same old ground, notwithstanding the fact that we've been putting a lot of effort into with the resources we've got around other priorities, e.g. indoor recreation and those sorts of things. I would suggest that the swimming facility discussion is probably an LTP discussion, because you're talking significant funding. So things haven't really changed from the water world options that we talked about before, and looking further at our partner pool options, which, to be fair, are quite limited because the actual pool space. One other thing which councillors are probably aware of is that the fast lane private pools opened on Victoria Street and since the last discussion at the LTP. So the answer to your question, Councillor King, is no, a comprehensive report hasn't been drafted and brought back to council, but there has been periodically pieces of information that have come to the council.
I don't recall being told that the partner pool, that Hamilton Boys High School had been accepted for partner pools. I don't recall any brief on what was happening at Te Rapa before this report came out, or before a week ago. I just think we've dropped a ball on this one. This clearly says we were supposed to have been reported back to, and I go to all briefings and I can't recall any feedback to me. It may have been given to selected elected members, but not to a group of us.
No, there was a verbal report given about the partner pool at, I'm just trying to recall which committee it was, I think it was Finance, but I'd have to check that and get back to you on that. So there was a report around that, but it wasn't a full written agenda report or anything like that.
Can I move, please, Chair, that this same statement, but with the year change from 2017 to 2018 be put forward?
Okay, so I just need to get some clarity here. What's the status of where you're at with this work? I mean, there's a lot of things happening in swimming. And I'm just going to give briefly here, as I understand it. I'm not sure what that was.
I think it was Kelvin twitching.
Okay. As I understand it, we've got the water world matters that you have been focusing on, which councillors are aware of and that have been resolved today. There are ongoing discussions in the north in relation to that pool that's in that structure plan in that town centre, which again are ongoing because they are contingent on developers doing their bit. But as I understand it, that's been a continuous discussion this year. I've sort of got that right?
That's correct.
Right, so that's got to be bedded down and
Yep.
sorted out. What's the likely time frame for that? Because that developer's getting on with that now, isn't he?
The Rotatuna pool.
Yes, yeah. I mean, in terms of where that's at.
So we're working through the CDP, the Comprehensive Development Plan.
Yes.
Which starts looking at the layout of the suburban centre.
Right.
The money for the Rotatuna swimming pool is in about year 12 or 13 of their 30-year infrastructre plan.
Yes.
And really this was about, one of the proposals in the LTP was the extra 25 metre pool at Waterworld. And then because of the financial situation, that was, the money was still in 21 and 22 in the financial strategy. So this was actually, this resolution, my understanding, the intent of it was to look at what are the more short-term around partner pools.
As a sort of a stopgap until those other ones go.
So Dee's team have done an analysis of that. We've entered into an arrangement with them boys because really they were pretty much, we went out for an RFP process and they were pretty much the only school that could actually provide any more capacity outside of the ones which are providing it now, such as the university and some of the other schools around the city.
The reason I was
Look,
asking
there aren't a lot of options, to be fair, Your Worship,
Right.
because, you know, you actually need pools and that sort of thing, and to develop more pools is, as we know, is very costly.
So I guess my point about asking about the stage of discussions in the north is because, you know, that may then require a comeback report to us about this is where it's now landed, this is the partnership model we're looking at, and the funding's up there, and you see what I'm saying? Information and knowledge and
Just to be clear, the developer's not looking at funding any aquatic facilities.
No, I'm sure that's the case.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's no point in having a resolution that has got no substance or benefit, but I think what Councillor King is looking for, which I think is a good idea, is perhaps to do a bit of work and bring back a more comprehensive report just covering off some of these aspects about the availability in the short term of more space and how we might address that. And if the answer to that is, well, there are no options, then Council, it's in your hands as to what you want to do about advancing funding, pretty much, isn't it?
Exactly.
I mean, that's where it ends up at.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just on that, and Michelle's not here now, Michelle Hollands, the Waikato district have been doing pretty much what we've done over the last couple of years, is doing a stock take of swimming facilities and where they're heading. Obviously, they've got big pressures to the north of their area, but they've got a number of ageing swimming facilities as well, and some councillors will be aware of the planned upgrade of the pool at Cambridge that Waipa District Council and the trust that run that pool are working through, and I think they received a substantial sum of money from Trust Waikato for that upgrade, but still have to raise more money. So what we'd be doing is really for the next, heading towards development of the next LTP, is bringing back all that information and distilling that down into what are council's options. And I think you're right, Your Worship, you know, my hunch is that there isn't a magic wand here to say that there's a whole lot of options out there for extra swimming space at the moment, outside of building an extra pool at Waterworld or developing the new one at Rotatuna. I think the other thing is just in doing that work is actually looking at what are the potential partners that are out there, because fast lane's gone in on Victoria Street. And I know Dee and her team have been just looking at, what the uptake's been there around, a private pool attracting swimmers. We haven't had a decrease in swimming at Waterworld because of that.
So,
Sorry, Julie,
yeah,
could I just follow up on that? So does fast lane appear to have been able to soak up the demand, to satisfy the demand for, because I know there's people still wanting, I think, the old munis, wanting some replacement for the munis. Is that seeming to answer that question?
Look, I can't give you a definitive answer because we don't know what their numbers are because they haven't disclosed those to us.
And they don't have to, I suppose.
No, they don't. So.
But are swimmers saying, we don't want to go down there because it's too expensive, or are they saying, yep, that's great, we don't need or have you had that discussion yet?
Look, we hear things. I could only give you an answer around anecdotal things, but I wouldn't like to do that because I think, that...
Well, it's a private business and we don't want to
that might
say
be
anything
jumping
good
to
or bad about
conclusions,
them.
so...
I'm wondering...
But I'm more concerned, I'm more interested in terms of, because the sink or swim people were claiming we needed a pool there, a pool there somewhere.
Yeah.
I think council position was, well, there's a private pool coming, let's see what happens. Does that satisfy the demand? And I guess it's more just, are we close to satisfying the demand, or is that just...
Well, my view would be that there is a 25-metre pool there at Fast Lane.
Yep.
My understanding is that their charges are now slightly more expensive than ours.
At Te Rapa?
No, at Fast Lane on Victoria Street.
Yeah, more expensive than Te Rapa.
Yeah, compared to Gallagher or Te Rapa, Waterworld. So what the uptake has been, we don't know because, obviously they probably see that as commercially sensitive.
Yep.
I'm wondering whether this would satisfy what we're trying to get here, which is that staff report back to the council meeting in April, so that effectively gives you a couple of months on the short-term solutions relating to swimming capacity, so that we get a fixed date when it comes to the council. It is within, if there is any thought that the council might want to do something in a money sense, that's time enough to add it into an annual plan. So does that, because what we need here is, I think, a bit of an overview of what the status is of these things, because things have moved or changed. There are some things that have moved or changed since we discussed this topic last time, which was in the LTP last year.
And Your Worship, the earlier discussion today around the renewals at Waterworld, then I know that's just a temporary situation, but that is part of the equation as well. So when Waterworld's closed, then where do people go?
So does that kind of pick up what you're wanting, Councillor King?
No, look, we've talked for 20 minutes on this now, around and round and round. We've dropped the ball on this.
I don't feel so, to
this,
be honest.
We were supposed to come back.
Quite useful, actually.
Look, I have a huge interest in swimming. I have 2 kids who are swim coaches. One of them works at Fast Lane. The place is pumping down there. Kids drown because they don't get in the water enough, and we've got a major shortage of lane space in the city. And this here was put in here. We dropped the ball. We didn't do it.
So we're looking for a solution now. So does that, take your point, but what's the solution?
What I'm asking for is that this gets rolled over so that we can address it before the next annual plan and move into it properly. Like I said, I had no idea of what was happening at Waterworld until a week ago. We weren't briefed. I had on a $3 million spend.
Well, there was a briefing on the
Don't think
17th
so.
of November about the
Absolutely
renewals
not.
issues.
We didn't talk about a $3 million spend. There was no money put on it. We didn't talk about the pool being deeper.
No, but that's the way to solve the issue. So at that stage, we didn't have we told you what the problem was, but we didn't actually have the answers.
So I guess, Councillor King, look, I'm happy if you just want it rolled over and come to next year.
I'll second that.
I was trying to resolve this issue for you in a more immediate way. But if you want to just roll it over for another year, that's fine with me.
Well, we need to bring it in so it doesn't get forgotten. So next year we do actually start talking on this leading up to the time.
All right.
So
what's your motion then? What is it? Just this motion with different dates?
Or do you want it earlier than that?
What I'm trying to say is we dropped the ball here. We didn't do this.
So?
This didn't happen, and I did. There was no. There was no report back before this meeting on short-term swimming, short lane space shortage.
Yep, so what do you want to do now?
We do need to address this.
Right,
There is a problem.
What do you want to do? Do you want a motion that's exactly that wording, but with just the 17, 18
Well, we
days?
need to bring it in early. Staff need to pick up a motion like this before the plan,
Agree.
so that we get some traction and direction.
Totally agree. That's why we have action lists, so that people look at them and do the actions. I absolutely agree with you, but what I'm trying to understand here is, what do you want to do now? Chastisement's been accepted, what do you want to do now?
Can I make a suggestion that?
Well, I had a suggestion, but if you want to do something different, fine. What is it?
I would suggest that that staff report back to council by the 31st of June 2016.
Yes, good.
30th of June.
There's 31 days in June.
Oh, July then, okay. Just check, make sure I get my right years. Okay, 31 July, report back to with options that include a response to the short-term solutions, So you can drop out the stuff about the
Okay, so instead of my April 1, we're going for July. Great, all right?
July or June.
Have you got that? Pop it up.
We could go August.
Save me.
Rob suggests September,
Councillors?
the third.
Okay, come on.
Councillors?
Can we put the motion up, thanks? Councillor King, does that satisfy you?
So due, that staff report back by 31 July
2016.
2016. Oh,
Why that date?
2016.
No, look, that's fine, councillors. Councillor Mallett's got a solution. Let's go with that. So, Councillor King, you happy with that one?
Does it
And take out the word short term.
Councillor King, happy? Yep. Okay, we've got a mover and a seconder. General Manager, is that clear what you have to do? Yep. Lance, clear? You know what you're doing?
What does comprehensive mean?
2 pages.
Comprehensive is too
What did
fluffy
it
for
mean?
the
What did it
general
mean in
manager?
the existing?
It wasn't in there, councillor.
Okay, so where did comprehensive come from?
You had to.
You,
Did I say comprehensive? Did I?
Yeah, that's fine, we'll remove comprehensive. Councillors, does that satisfy you, councillor King?
Thank you.
Cool, does that satisfy councillor King?
all right. General Manager, you clear what you've actually got to do?
Yes.
By the date?
Yes.
Great. All right. I think it's really clear, Councillor, in the discussion, despite your comments, Councillor, I actually found the discussion really helpful. I didn't find it round and round at all, because there is swimming stuff, conversations going on everywhere, and you probably know a lot of them, given your involvement, but I found it helpful. Does anyone want to speak to this? I'm sure not, but I just will go through the motions. Okay, so we're going to
Yeah,
vote.
I'd like to speak. I urge you to vote for this.
Thank you, Councillor Mallett. We're going to the board, people.
Gary, do you want to rough it?
I urge you to vote for
One would be concerned if anyone voted against it.
it. Urge is the thing nowadays.
I wanted June. I wanted April. Rob wanted February.
Are we on, Jude? Yes. We're on. The difficulties with the technology says to me, why are we not receiving that technology report we would like?
Unanimous. Unanimous.
Yeah.
And secondly, that we have a technology report
Yeah.
back by the 31st of July 2016.
Thank you.
You don't
Right.
often get a unanimous decision from one of your motions, councillor Mallett.
Right.
Quicken
Page
nowadays, I
90.
quicken
We'll
Okay,
enjoy.
councillors, page 90 is, again, for information, but Stephen is here to answer any questions in relation to that.
I'm happy to move when we're ready.
I'll get back to the recommendation on page 11, page 45. I'll come to you, councillor Pascoe. Any questions on this? No? Okay, so councillor Pascoe, I'm back on page 11, under paragraph 45. So you're, sorry, councillors, before we get to that, I do have, councillor King had raised that he wanted to put another motion in relation to art, so I will come to him about that before we go to 45. That's okay with you? Yes, question on I've observed that
Seconding.
gesture, Deputy Mayor, thank you. I've seen that. Yeah.
Oh, you're in trouble.
Yes, I
Deputy
recognise
Mayor's in
that.
You being uncouth, councillor?
I'm just signalling that
All
I'm
right,
going
we're
to
getting
second
tired, so let's just focus. We're in the home straight. Who were you signalling for? Who?
I'm seconding councillor Pascoe's
Yes, but,
excellent.
right, but just before we go to that, I'm just going to go to councillor King because he wanted to put a motion in relation to art. Do you still want to do that? Okay, let's put it on the board. Do you just want to explain the rationale behind this, councillor King, because this comes sort of cold to the council?
So, do you want me to just go straight in and speak to it? Would that be?
Okay, well, let's see if there's a seconder first. Well, yeah, okay, so councillor King, I think people want to know what it's actually about. Why don't you tell us what it's about, and we might have to go to Lance just to get some clarity otherwise.
So I'm getting people who are coming to me from the arts community, and some of them are leaders of groups of artists, not-for-profit organisations, who are saying that the normal commission that would be through commercial art galleries in New Zealand would take a 40% commission. Some of the councils are selling art at no commission in council-owned galleries, and that they feel that a lot of work and energy goes into their piece of art, and then when they put it up for sale in their arts post, we're taking a 40% commission, and that it's suggested that a 20% commission, if we were supportive of arts, as our mission statements say, that 20% would be a more realistic figure. Now, if we do drop the commission from 40% to 20%, there would be a loss of revenue to the museum budget of $45,000. So we'd have to increase, so I'm proposing that we increase the museum budget by $45,000 to cover that shortfall. This is similar to supporting sport, supporting acting, where we've made theatres available, and this is our actual artists who our mission statements and on the council website says that we will support, actually giving them some support back to the artist who holds a brush and puts paint on the canvas.
Right, so thank you for that clarity around there. So this is art that's sold at Arts Post on behalf of artists, isn't it? So look, General Manager, I do need to signal, and I did say to Councillor King this, that I felt that it might be better placed to bring a proper report to a committee rather than sort of put it cold here, because it's an issue that obviously he would like some discussion on. But I just need to go, Lance, this is like a commission kind of fee thing. We are discussing, I think, fees in May at the finance meeting. I think there's a report coming.
So fees and charges is coming in May?
Right.
Finance. That's all our schedule of fees and charges right across the council. So this is, as Councillor King's correctly outlined, is a arts post we do run commercially, and we do charge, artists can book space and then they can sell their artworks. They tell us what the price is for their artwork, if it's $100, and then we add on a 40% commission plus GST, and then that becomes whatever it is, $150 or something like that. And we get significant revenue from this, between $70,000 and $95,000 a year, depending on the year. I'd have to say that we have about 140 what we call supplier artists, and we've only ever had 2 or 3 pull out, and we've only had the odd one say that they thought the commission was too high. So we have run arts posts on the commercial basis like that, and that's what we've done for quite a few years. So
So have people been because Councillor King's saying groups, not just one, groups are approaching him. I think I heard that right.
Well, individuals, but also a major group.
Right.
yeah. Well, I've spoken to Sheree and Steve Chappell, who's the visitor services manager there, and they said that they have only had one or two people in the last 3 years who've actually contacted them saying this is an issue for them.
All right. So
But
obviously we'd need to
I'm more
get
than
to the
happy to
bottom
bring a
of
report back at some stage if that seems prudent by council.
Right, particularly if those people haven't come to the museum itself and raised the issue. It would be good to flush that out. Sorry, do you need have you got a question or something?
I had the same matter raised with me last year, and the sort of straw poll at that time was that we weren't out of kilter with other councils, but I think a report would help clarify that one way or the other.
Okay.
So I'd be quite keen and support Councillor King in getting a report that perhaps did indicate where we actually stood in that regard, whether we were charging too much or too little or whatever.
No one's saying that 40% isn't the industry standard, but our mission statement on our own website says that we'll support arts. The arts post says that we'll set up an environment that will help artists. And the artists are sore because we take 40%, and it's all very well to say they want 100, so it goes at 140. It won't sell. 40% they feel is greedy, and I must admit, if we're here to support the arts, it is greedy. We're not a commercial art gallery.
Are we in debate?
Yeah, no, we're not.
No, we're not.
No, we're not in
I've
debate.
been asked to explain what the motion's
Yeah,
about.
and I think, Councillor King, you have. I guess what we're flushing out here is we've got your motion, we've got some information from the General Manager, and I guess we're just, in the collaborative spirit, we're trying to work out, okay, if an issue's arisen, what's the best way to look at it? It's not a us and them thing, it's work out what's the best solution going forward. Councillor Mallett, did you have a question?
Just a question and a sort of a philosophical, it surprises me that we're even in this business at all. So could your report please give us a rationale or the history of how we got to become art salespeople when we were a local authority?
Yes.
Yeah, because I'd be surprised if we were in the real estate game, if we were in the selling of art game. I don't know why on earth we're in that. This is miles and miles and miles away from roads and rubbish and water.
I suppose what Councillor Mallett is looking for is the usual model or structure for art galleries. I think that's at the heart.
Well, does it fit into the Local Government Act? Is it what we're supposed to be doing?
So, Councillor Gallagher, just a
Yes, certainly. It's certainly detailed on page 17 of the Hamilton Plan under celebrated for our arts and culture, so it's all there. And what I would like to
I don't think that's a good reference.
to do is, it's really, I fully support where
your
Andrew's trying to
opinion?
go with this, but I think it's just a matter of, Andrew, if we could get probably up reports. So it's about process, and trust me, I want to be supportive. So I'm wondering if you could, I'm happy to second that, if you could actually just say that
Report back.
that staff report on the possibility, all right? So then we've got up, and
All
then
the
we've got a chance to get it up.
So just
And
checking.
is that,
Yes, so just checking then, is there a second of a Councillor King? No,
if it's
don't-
agreeable to the mover, I'm
can
just
you
wanting to add in.
Not change it, sorry, Jude, but I mean, I just need to check if there's actually a seconder for the motion as Councillor King has put forward.
Well, I'm,
No.
Sorry?
I'm just trying to clarify, because
Right.
Councillor King says, I want this matter
Okay.
dealt with. So the first question is there a seconder, but if not, then we'll move into looking at some different option.
Just to be, is that also include?
Gary had his hand up to second there.
Yeah. I will, provided it includes the background to why we're even in the business as well.
It's not a
But there's not a-
report, Councillor Mallett. At the moment, the motion is we vote on that now, today, and make this decision. We have just been having a conversation about, do we need more information? Should we have a report? This is the motion. Are you going to second that motion?
Oh,
as
no,
it is?
sorry, not if it doesn't give us that background information about
And just
what
to
we're
make it
doing.
clear, council can change their fees and charges structure at any point, so we don't need to do it today either.
And can I just ask a question on that? Don't we, as a matter of course, do fees and charges during this annual plan process when we adopt the annual plan in June anyway?
We're doing that at May at the Finance Committee meeting.
Okay, so not as part of that.
It will be incorporated.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
right. I got yeah.
Okay, so councillor King, I think the flavour is good point, but let's get a report. So can we make some changes to what's up there, because there's no support from a seconder to get the information through. You happy with that? Okay, so why don't we make it say something like that staff present a report on the process and commission structure for the sale of art at Arts Post, because it is the only place, as I understand it, that we sell on behalf of, is it Arts Post?
Can I just add into that, not just the process, the authority or the rationale or the justification for us doing it?
Yeah,
Because I'd like to know that it even follows the law.
I mean, you'll pick that all up, right?
As long as and I want to have then that the specific issue is be considered. So you're reporting on it, not committing you, but that's one of the bullet points of what we want to further discuss, okay?
Okay, and
So-
so you've heard the feedback about,
No,
how
sorry,
did we start
that's-
it all, and why did we do it, and why do we do it, and what's the money look like? And then councillor King, when we get that report, which then councillor King can put a motion if he wants to. Is that going to pick it up clearly?
Can I just ask that it explicitly consider the matter of the legality or the appropriateness of a local authority
Oh, that's
being in the commission sales business?
absolute rubbish.
Yeah.
It was tough for you to understand, Gordon, but you don't understand a heap
I
of
think-
that stuff.
No, come on, guys.
Can I be helpful? Because obviously I've suddenly seen the 40% lost, but I think there's a minute note, because obviously we're into descriptive minutes, and the minutes are going to note the original, just purely the original idea.
Yeah.
The minutes are also going to probably note the issue that Councillor Mannett raised in terms of Local Government Act, Hamilton Plan, etc. I'm sure there can be, you know what I mean? I would expect a report to perhaps cover off all of those things anyway, so it's not. I mean, what I'm wanting to avoid today is a big debate and an argument, is just to get an appropriate report where those things are covered off.
Well, Gary was brave enough, he put an amendment to close the Arts Post down.
Okay, look, guys, we're nearly at the end here, and this actually is an issue that I think we should get a report on
Have a
and
look
talk
at.
about. Because it,
Close it down.
if our community is raising an issue that they would like us to look at, then what's the best way to do that? Okay, so are people happy with that?
I'll
In
second
terms
that.
of okay,
Is there a time
so
frame?
councillor King, you happy to move that, and you've got a seconder, if you are. Right, yes, councillor Gallagher is the seconder. And
No,
councillor Mallett, I don't think you're going to get into yours, the legality of the Local Government Act, but the important thing is,
So we're not concerned
you
at all
re-
about whether we're doing
Right.
things that are legal or
if
not.
you just let me finish, when the report comes, you will be able to question the GM at length, I would imagine, about whether it fits within the framework of the Local Government Act. And that will be your time to do that.
The template for council agenda items talks about the Local Government Act, so we'll cover that off.
All right, there we go. Okay, so I'm sure that we don't need any debate on this, but it's been an interesting issue. Okay, so we're going to vote?
Is there a time frame on it?
We can have done for the fees and charges by May.
Yeah, in May. Let's put, in May. Present a report at the Finance Committee meeting in May. We better put that in, right?
Yep.
Is that when the fees and charges
Yeah.
comes on?
Yeah.
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 Okay, good
So
spotting.
there's
Thank
no
you.
debate on it?
No.
Yeah, you can debate it if you want to.
Can what?
No.
All right, we're voting on the board?
If you've got a
Voting.
Oh.
Well, I wanted to debate it.
Councillor Turman's making a stand.
He is.
All right, we're on page 11.
Are you an artist, Councillor Turman?
And I have,
is.
No.
I have a mover for O, P and Q, and a seconder, and that is Councillor Pascoe with the Deputy Mayor.
Can I, and I'm just asking around P, because obviously the issue of community engagement is always very close to my heart, and I want to know how we could do that, because it seems to me community engagement could also very much be inviting people to correspond with the chief executive by a certain date, and that would be circulated. You know, I mean, it seems to me that we have done a very significant, particularly in terms of the Rototuna. I mean, in some senses, this may be seen as a business as usual AP within the context of the LTP, where the big debate happened and the votes went up. But I would argue that particularly around that north-east, which is, in my view, very positive. So I'm just trying to work out a means by which it's clear that ratepayers can comment. You're not going to have hearings, as I understand it, and I don't know if there's a will for hearings, but it is a noting that in our city news, people are welcome to make comment via you, or something, and that's circulated, that's all. Because a total close-off is something, you know, because this is about decision-making, about democracy, etc.
So I suppose I'm just thinking we have public forum, which is an opportunity for people to come and view, you know, voice their opinions on agenda items, which I think people would agree has worked pretty well since we've instituted that. Including today, yeah, that's right. Lance, given that Councillor Gallagher is talking specifically about your particular area, I mean, I'm assuming that you have wide tentacles and mechanisms out into the community that would, you know, pick up comments. I mean, can you give an assurance or give some level of comfort to Councillor Gallagher about being in touch with the community about these issues?
We have a number of mechanisms of getting feedback from people. I've got our community advisors. My department takes thousands of inquiries every couple of weeks. So there's different ways of doing that. I'd have to say, just on the indoor recreation, there has been, over the last 2 years, there's been significant community consultation on this. There's been significant feedback, and I don't think the decision the council made today within the 15-16 annual plan, not the 16-17 annual plan, need to be clear on that, that whether or not we'd actually get any different views on that from the community. So, and we've just got to remember the 31st of March deadline as well. So
does that kind of give
it's a
you
little
some
bit
comfort there,
challenging.
Councillor Gallagher?
Well, look, I mean, all I'm saying is you've got a really good communications team, whether it's in Hamilton City News, and it's just, even if there's an additional thing, and it be noted that opportunities that still exist through the public forum or something like that. I'm just trying to look for some angle where people are at least told they can write to us, use a public forum, and it's not a sort of see you later alligator.
Will it be in the City News?
Yeah, we will have an aspect of City News in terms of where our decisions are today and what we're proposing. It's a very positive news story today in terms of that. And with any communication on social media, I think one of the councillors mentioned, we will get feedback, so we'll make sure that if anything comes through, we can communicate that with councillors.
Well, even if we could add to that recommendation with the leave of the move and second, and that the Chief Executive's advice re appropriate public feedback be noted, and we've got a series of steps, all right? So what I'm saying is we've made a decision in the context that we're well aware that there are actually, even though we're not going for a formal hearings process, we are, you know, we're well aware that through multimedia, there's opportunities for the public to let elected members know what they think, that's all.
Yep, and we can actually put that in, we can put that in the City News, that if they wish to discuss any of the points included in the annual plan, and we'll list what those points are, please contact your elected members as well, if that's another avenue.
Sure.
And that might well be a good compromise. Because I guarantee you, if we don't put that in there, they will contact you.
Aaron can put that in his article today, Aaron, can't you?
Please, Aaron, thank you. You'll
We'll
save us some money. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we've got the move and the seconder. So do you want to, Councillor Pascoe, do you wish to speak to this?
Yes, I do, thanks. Just on the community engagement, it seems to me that, and I think we've discussed that in Councillor Gallagher's questioning, I don't seem to think that that's necessary given the full public consultation, and I certainly was involved heavily in that when we did the LTP last year. The only major unbudgeted spend not previously covered in the LTP is the 4.29 million for infrastructure under item F. And applying materiality either around the asset base or the income does not in itself trigger a material amount. In terms of supporting the current financial strategy of Hamilton City Council, it's interesting to note that last year Auckland Council commissioned Ernst & Young and Campbell and Partners to report on ways on how they would fund growth. The conclusions from this international accounting firm included 3 ways to fund growth: 1 by increasing rates, 2 by borrowing, and 3 by selling assets. Not exactly rocket science, and I think if you look at what we've been doing over the last five years in this council, in fact we've been doing the same. I just wonder whether selling assets has reached a maturity sort of level, because last week council voted strongly in favour of moving 5 hectares of land within Whaiwhakariki, land that was good to have for the park but not essential. And I just wonder whether we now need to focus on the other 2 aspects of Ernst & Young's report, and that's around the rates and the borrowing. I'm pretty relaxed about the fact that the city is facing unprecedented growth, and certainly growth that we hadn't expected would have happened when we did the long-term plan last year. And I think the strategies that we have in place now are the right strategies that will allow us to complete what needs to be done at the right time. So I'm supporting items O, P and Q, and I ask my colleagues also to do the same.
Okay, thank you. Other speakers for and against? No one? Councillor King.
Yeah, I'll speak. Bottom line is we've got nothing else to sell, guys. We've sold it all. And I just want to congratulate Richard and his senior team and all the staff for putting this together and helping to run the city well. So through this process.
Okay, thank you. Any other speakers for and against? No? Okay, councillors, we're going to the board.
Gary.
Carried 9 votes for and 1 against.
Okay, councillors, so that now concludes the agenda items. So thank you very much, everyone, for getting through this. That's it?
Good move for tomorrow.
Yes, right. No, we don't need to come tomorrow. Thank you very much.